Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Lucas. We're going to pick off right where we left off from the previous video regarding basic music theory for production. And so we're going to take these triads that we just made in the key of C major, and we're going to actually turn them into 7th chords and then 9th chords. And here's the thing. It's actually not as complicated as it seems, but when you actually start to use it and move it into different keys and start to make music out of it, it can get a little bit more complicated. But just bear with me for a second here. So just to recap where we're at, we use the key of C major, which is all the white keys in the piano. We know that in between each white key there's a black key, except for between E and F, which is 3 and 4, and between B and C, which is 7 and 8, or 7 and 1. So let's keep that in mind. So here we have our C major triad, and we built it by essentially skipping D. So we start on C, skip D, and go to the next note, which is in the scale, which is E. And we follow that same pattern, so we just skip a note. And we took 3 notes and we got C, E, and G. So we're going to actually continue the same pattern. So we get C, E, and G, and we're going to skip a note and we get B. So we're going to add that on top here. And that's going to build our first 7 chords. This is C major 7. It sounds like this. So it really adds like a lot of complexity on top of the triad. It's a totally different ball game when you're working with 7 chords. So I'm going to follow the same pattern actually for all of these chords, so you know the drill. For D, we already have the triad. So we have D, F, A. And so if we just follow along these notes here, we have D, F, A. We skip over here and we have C. So that's our top note, that's our 7th. I'm going to keep following the same pattern for all these, so I'm going to do it a little bit more quickly. So we have E, G, B, and D. Sounds like this. Alright, that's our 3 chord. Now for our 4 chord, we have F, A, C, and we have E. Same thing for our 5 chord, G, B, D, and F. For our 6th chord, we have A, C, E, and then we have G is our 7th. And lastly, this one's a tricky one, and we'll talk about it more, but it's a harder, it's not as common in popular music, but it's very common in jazz and R&B and other styles of music, which we'll totally get into. But here we have B, D, F, and then A. Sounds like that. So I'm just going to go through this one more time. So we have C major 7. That's our 1 chord. Now we have D minor 7, which is our 2 chord. Now we have E minor 7, which is our 3 chord. Oops, sorry about that. We have F major 7 as our 4 chord. G dominant 7, which is our 5 chord. Now bear with me with the terminology. I'm going to explain all of this as well, but this one's called G dominant 7. It is a really specific recognizable sound. Now we have A minor 7 for our 6th chord. And our last chord is going to be B half diminished. Again, bear with me with the terminology. We'll go through all of this. B half diminished chord sounds like this. Great. So those are our 7th chords for the C major scale. So in the next video, we're going to talk about doing the 9th chords, which will essentially just add another note in the same pattern. But what I want you to do is to take these and create some chord progressions out of them. Now I should add, you don't necessarily have to use a 7th chord for every single chord in your song. So that's a mistake that I made very early on, where it was like, oh, well, 7th chord, it makes it sound more complex, it's more jazzy, like why not just use it at all times? So no, that's not how music works. So it's not like whack-a-mole where you just add everything in when you can. So they all have a very specific sound to them, and there's very specific ways that you should use them in your music. So happy music making, enjoy, stay tuned for the next video, and let me know if this was helpful in any way, and leave me some comments if you have any suggestions. So I really appreciate it, and take care.